In a big boost to global fight against coronavirus pandemic and a big boost to drug makers Pfizer and BioNTech, United Kingdom has become the first country in the world to approve the Pfizer-BioNTech coronavirus vaccine for widespread use. British regulator, Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency, has approved Pfizer-BioNTech's COVID-19 vaccine for widespread use. The vaccine will be made available across the UK from as early as next week. The UK government said that they have accepted the recommendation from the Independent Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency to approve the Pfizer-BioNTech's COVID-19 vaccine for use. It also said the jab, offering up to 95% protection against COVID, is safe for rollout. It can be called the fastest transition for a vaccine amid a pandemic, taking only 10 months to follow the same developmental steps that normally spans over a decade. In fact, these vaccines produced by Pfizer and other companies, including Moderna and Russia, which has produced Sputnik, the production of these vaccines is the fastest development of a vaccine against a new disease in the world. The earlier record was 4 years for a vaccine developed against mumps, and that was in the 1960s. So science, this is a testament to the advance of science and medicine that the world has made. But it's a great boon for the people in UK, as United Kingdom has become the first country in the world to approve Pfizer's vaccine for widespread use in the country, and the vaccine will be available for widespread use as early as next week. Joining us on this big breaking news is Ollie Barrett, who's joining us live from London. Ollie, thank you so much for giving us your time. This is great news for the UK, isn't it? In fact, UK vaccine approval is a historic moment. We're getting the first reaction from Pfizer, which has called it a historic moment. Challenges still remain, Ollie, because the Pfizer vaccine needs to be stored at -70°C. It can be stored for just a couple of days at -2°C, but largely it needs to be stored at -70°C. So logistical problems remain. However, the rollout has been approved from as early as next week. People in UK can start and hope to get vaccinated. Who are likely to be the first targets of these vaccination process and vaccination drive?
That's right. UK officials have put together a priority list in terms of who goes first, and at the top of that list include people who work in the healthcare sector here in the UK, but also people who are considered the most vulnerable. So some of the oldest members of the population and some of those who have other vulnerabilities, perhaps some comorbidities too, in terms of conditions that they suffer from and are therefore vulnerable to COVID-19. We have had this news welcomed by the Department of Health and Social Care in a statement, saying this follows months of rigorous clinical trials, a thorough analysis, says the Department of Health and Social Care, of the data by experts at the MHRA, which is the regulator. The statement goes on that the experts have concluded that the vaccine has met its strict standards of safety, quality and effectiveness. Now, there is a committee called the JCVI here in the UK, which has been putting together the priorities list in terms of who goes first in receiving the vaccine. In the Department for Health and Social Care statement says that the JCVI will shortly publish its final advice for the priority groups which will receive the vaccine, including residents of care homes. And then the statement says the vaccine will be made available across the UK from next week. You mentioned some of those logistical challenges. No one in the NHS, I don't think, is under any illusion that this is going to be a complicated rollout, given some of the issues that you were mentioning to do with the temperature at which this particular vaccine has to be stored. The other reason that health officials here in the UK will be urging caution is that, of course, this vaccine, like others, takes a couple of doses for it to start working properly. So it's not as if from next week the country can suddenly, according to officials, open up again and return to normal life. Even for those people who are at the front of the queue in terms of getting vaccinated, the effects of this Pfizer vaccine as it's rolled out won't start to be felt in those people even receiving the jab for a few weeks yet. But certainly this is a major breakthrough in terms of science. It's a major breakthrough in terms of the UK regulator being able to move this quickly, and therefore a major breakthrough in terms of the NHS being ready to roll it out within days.
Absolutely. People in the UK were hoping that the vaccination drive can begin before Christmas, and it appears that Christmas may come early for the people in UK as far as the vaccination drive is concerned. Do we know, Ollie, the number of vaccines that UK has ordered? What we are learning, initial reports suggest 40 million doses, which will be equal to about half the number, because people need 2 doses for about 20 million. I'm sure the UK will be placing an order for more doses in the future.
That's right, 40 million doses has been ordered of this vaccine by the UK, but that makes up really a small proportion of the overall number of vaccine doses already placed in terms of orders by the United Kingdom. Millions more of the Moderna vaccine ordered, millions more of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine ordered too. So if Moderna and Oxford came online as well in terms of receiving regulatory approval, then the UK would have very many doses indeed. The scientists here in Britain have been saying all throughout this pandemic that you are going to need a number of vaccines to vaccinate entire populations, but also to continue vaccinating entire populations. We don't yet know exactly how long any immunity provided by these vaccines is going to last exactly, so it may be something that becomes an ongoing process in the UK, but also in other countries. But certainly 40 million doses of Pfizer ordered already, and some of those 40 million doses being extended to the UK, arriving in the UK in terms of those orders being fulfilled as early as next week, so that that rollout can begin. And we had heard over the last 24 hours or so that some members of staff in National Health Service trusts, particularly here in London, were starting to be given a heads up that they should be prepared to administer vaccines next week, but also to receive them as well. As I was saying earlier, the healthcare workers in this country are right towards the top of that list in terms of who gets the vaccine first.
Right. What we are also learning is that Pfizer will start delivering the first batch of the 40 million doses that UK has ordered in the coming few days. But Ollie, do you expect this to spark a global race to get these vaccines? Because UK has given the approval, so Pfizer will be delivering UK's 40 million doses because they will be administered immediately in that country. But United States has ordered 100 million doses. Europe has ordered 200 million doses. So they will have to wait, and other countries which haven't yet placed orders will have to wait in line to get hold of these vaccines, isn't it?
Well, certainly the global race for vaccines was well underway before this approval came through, and indeed organisations like Gavi and the COVAX initiative have been working as hard as they can to make sure that lower income countries aren't left behind and that vaccine doses will be made available to them too. But certainly you can't start rolling out a vaccine until your regulators have given it approval, and the UK's regulator, the MHRA, is the first in the world to do so, and therefore the UK can become the first country in the world to roll out that vaccine. Now, in some quarters, that will potentially raise some alarm bells, the speed with which all this has moved, but officials here in Britain say corners have not been cut. Yes, emergency approval has been given by the MHRA, and yes, the MHRA has been given emergency powers to move forward with this approval before the end of the Brexit transition period at the end of the year, because of course up to now UK regulators would have worked in tandem with European Union officials on matters like these, and that raises a further question too. Some reports in the media overnight that perhaps the European Union is lagging a little bit behind in terms of when its regulators are going to be able to give their stamp of approval or otherwise to this and other vaccines. Certainly that will add pressure to officials in Brussels, and you would assume that officials in other countries are looking at the UK and the approval that's been now granted here and wondering whether they need to speed things up. Of course, healthcare officials all around the world will say that the most important thing here is to look at the data carefully and make sure that this is a vaccine that can be rolled out safely. Well, certainly according to the statement from the UK government, it is believed here in Britain that that is exactly what has happened. As I was saying at the beginning here, months of rigorous clinical trials are being cited by the National Health Service, a thorough analysis of the data by experts at the MHRA concluding that the vaccine, according to the statement, has met its strict standards of safety, quality and effectiveness. So certainly confidence here in the UK that this is the right step that's been taken. It's a step that's been taken by an independent regulator. This is not something that could have just been rushed through by government officials, desperate for a win, desperate for a success.
Absolutely.
This is something that has had to be signed off by the independent regulator.
Ollie Barrett, thank you so much for joining us on this big breaking news as the United Kingdom becomes the first nation in the world to approve Pfizer's vaccine against COVID for mass approval has been given for Pfizer's vaccine, and the vaccine will be rolled out in the UK as early as next week.